This is a homage beat. This is a homage beat.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. As always, I'm your host, and before we get started, let me just check audio because we've had issues in the last couple of weeks. Let me just check. Perfect. We are good to go. Welcome in, everyone. It is our first podcast of the new year, so thank you all for being here. I can't wait to get into what we got today. I'm excited to be back here with you guys. Finally just came back from a road trip. I don't want to say a road trip, a trip to the south with my girl Kelsey. We went to see her family for a little bit, but we're back, man. And we're hitting the ground running in 2020. I just got some good news before I came on stream, and like you guys already know, I'm transparent with you all. I will tell you guys everything about me. There's nothing that I hide from you, and your boy just got, I haven't even told Kelsey this yet because I just heard it before I got on stream. I just got accepted into a YouTube gaming host position. So I'll be doing that part-time as well. Add that on to the list of the part-time deals I have going on. I'm really excited about it. As you can see on my face, I'm super smiley. The year's starting off great for me. So, and again, this is all because of you guys. They took a look at my YouTube channel, this channel, the W.A.D.E Concept, as well as my personal channel, the W.A.D.E Plymouth channel, and they loved what I do, and they want to bring me in. I can't even talk right now. They want to bring me in to help them with theirs. So Again, you guys are helping me in ways you don't even know. So thank you. Thank you to everybody that's been a part of the W.A.D.E concept community established in 2017. And if you're new here, make sure you like the channel if you like what we're doing and subscribe to the channel to get more content like this. You don't exactly know what's going to happen, but that's the way we run here at the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. Free flowing, off the top of the cuff, everything off the top of the cuff. Top of the head, off the cuff. You get what I'm saying. Anyway, enough of that. But yeah, man, I missed you guys. It's been about a week, a little bit over a week, I think. And as you can see, no makeup on. Your boy ditched all the makeup because while I might have lost predictions for the UFC 245 card, today we have more predictions. And these we're going to do some punishments or wagers for as we go through the year. But today specifically, we're going to do predictions for the year 2020 in the world of MMA. Now, before we get started, I just saw that Conor McGregor dropped his Mac Life interview. I haven't watched it yet, so no spoilers. If you guys have watched it, or if you have questions about it, we'll address it in our next podcast when we actually do the Cowboy Conor breakdown. We're going to be doing a little bit of their fight breakdowns as well. Don't know how that's going to work with YouTube, but we're going to try to get some actual footage and break down each guy's strengths and weaknesses in the cage. We'll do a lot of that starting next week because we're just getting back into it today. But today is more focused on the totality of MMA, or in this case, the UFC. We're going to predict champions, we're going to predict breakout stars, and we're going to predict a couple shocking moments for this year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, guys, because you already know we are debating everything. All right. So first up, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on the screen. It's going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert because I'm not revealing one by one, but we're going to do our champions prediction here. So this is going to be our 2020 championship predictions. We're starting with, actually, we're just going to put it up. So boom. All right, here we go, guys. So this is what, in my opinion, the champions at the end of 2020 will be. You guys can hate it. You guys can love it. It is what it is. This is just what I think. So we're going to start with the men's 125 division. I think at the end of 2020, the champion at 125 in the UFC men's division will be Joseph Benavidez. I think that because he has a tried and trusted track record. He's beaten the top names in that division, not named Demetrius Johnson. He even holds a win over the previous and now bantamweight champion Henry Cejudo. The guy really doesn't lose fights, ever. Great stand-up, unorthodox stand-up, a little wild, but at 125, he can get away with it. But the combination of that and his wrestling ability and him being at Team Alpha Male for so long, his submission ability, Joe Benavidez has the well-rounded ability as well as the experience in that division to hold that belt, in my opinion. And because this division is just now fighting for a vacant title, you're going to see a lot more movement in the middle of the division before Joe Benavidez gets a lot of continuous challengers. So I would see him fighting maybe at most 3 times this year. One for the belt, which is coming up soon, and 2 more times. And I don't see a lot of people in that division that are going to give him too many problems, especially this year. Now, maybe into 2021, you might see some more of these young 125ers come up and challenge and have some success, but I see Joe Benavidez running the table at 25 for the totality of 2020. Now, that's not my prediction for every champion on this list. Some of these champions, and you guys can already see, are going to be a little bit of head scratchers, but these are champions that I think will end the year. They don't have to hold the belt the entire year. I just think they end the year as the champion. So, moving on, we have the men's 135-pound champion, and I have Aljamain Sterling. This in 170, maybe 170, 185, 155 is a little bit of a cheeky nod for me, but this was really hard to pick at 135 because there are so many big-time fighters at 135, and it's not as easy as just picking one out of the hat because you have to take into account matchups, you have to take into account when these fighters are going to be fighting next, and who has what scheduled. Aljamain doesn't have a fight scheduled at the moment, but when you look down the list, you have Marlon Moraes number 1, Aljamain number 2, Piotr Jan number 3, Corey Sandhagen, who is a very, very good prospect, a very young guy at 22, I want to say, a very good prospect and probably will hold gold at some point in his UFC career. I just don't think it's yet. The reason I pick Aljamain Sterling over guys like Marlon Moraes, over Petr Yan, even a guy that I'm a big fan of in Cody Garbrandt, I do think that Aljamain is big for the weight class, great wrestler, and you look at guys that are going to challenge Henry Cejudo, he's not going to be outpaced by a guy like Marlon Moraes, by a guy like Petr Yan, maybe Corey Sandhagen, and maybe Rafael Assunção with his grappling ability could give Henry Cejudo some problems. Pedro Munoz as well with his grappling ability combined with his stand-up. But Aljamain has just shown an ability to beat those guys. He's beaten Pedro Munoz. He's beaten Jimmy Rivera. He's had hard wins, experience against really tough opponents in that division. And I think, again, with his grappling, and he showed great striking against Pedro Munoz. He outstruck Pedro Munoz in their fight. So I think the combination that he presents, as well as just his size, he's a big 135er. You look at Aljamain Sterling, and you don't see a 135-pound man. This is a little bit off base, I know that, but I'm going to say that Aljamain walks around at 165 to 170 pounds. I mean, that's not a 135-pound man. For him to get down to that weight class is shocking to me, but he is there, and he is a big body with cardio endurance, with good wrestling, good grappling ability, and improved striking. And you don't have to be a master striker at that weight class to get it done. So I do think Aljamain, whether it's Henry Cejudo at the time, whether Petr Yan gets the jump and gets that fight next, or Henry's calling for Jose Aldo, I think Aljamain Sterling has a good matchup against a lot of the guys at 135. And I think he ends up with the belt at the end of 2020. I would say it's probably against either Henry Cejudo or Petr Yan that he would fight later in 2020. And maybe, the October-ish range, because Aljamain still doesn't have an opponent booked. But I think he gets that fight later in the year and comes away with the strap and walks into 2021 as your champion. But do not rule out guys like Cody Garbrandt, guys like Cody Stamann. Those guys will be in title contention either toward the later part of the year, in my opinion, or early 2021. So don't rule them out either. Obviously, Petr Yan is there. He's probably going to get a shot at that strap. Corey Sandhagen is there. He might get a shot. Rafael Assunção right now is wrapped up in a matchup. So there's a lot of movement going to happen at 135. I just think Aljamain has proved his worth, and through the experience of beating big-time names and the variety of ways he beats them, I think he's got a good shot at holding gold by the end of 2020. Next up, we have Zabit Magomed Sharipov. Now, this is an interesting one at 145 as well, because who I'm picking is not even ranked 1 or 2 in the contendership of the world. Now, the rankings we know don't mean a ton in the UFC. A la, Conor McGregor getting a shot after a 2-year layoff, Georges St. Pierre coming in after years of retirement and getting a shot at the title. They don't mean a ton. But in this case, it's not even so much that he's lower down than Max Holloway or Brian Ortega in the rankings. It's because he is very versatile. And if you'll notice on my list, I'm picking a lot of champions that are very versatile. Maybe not Conor McGregor or even Darren Till for that matter, but everyone else, or I guess maybe Francis Ngannou, but everyone else does have a lot of variety. I don't think it's strictly a wrestling sport. There are a lot of champions in the UFC that do have a wrestling background, but they have gone on to improve their stand-up, their striking abilities. I think variety is what is making a UFC champion now. I don't think it's necessarily being good at 4 or 5 different things. I think he's being great at 1 or 2 things, but the variety in which you use those 1 or 2 things is what is breeding champions, right? And I think at 145 pounds, you have an elite striker in Zabit Magomed and an elite wrestler in Zabit as well. So he possesses 2 things that are really rare in that division, which is phenomenal wrestling and great striking, or phenomenal grappling and great striking. Good pace. I would say a mirror image of Brian Ortega with a little bit more variety in his shots. Better pacing. I don't think he necessarily has shown enough yet at that 5-round level for me to go ahead and crown him champion in the early part of 2020. But as the year goes on and we see him in big-name fights, I don't think he's scheduled at the moment, but we could see him possibly fighting Korean Zombie, maybe even Ortega for a number one contender spot. Maybe Max gets the immediate rematch versus Alexander Volkanovski. They do that fight, and then the winner of maybe is Zabit, Brian Ortega, or Zabit, Korean Zombie, gets the next shot at the title. I could see him possibly snatching that title by mid-May, maybe August. So we're looking at Zabit holding that title from mid-year, maybe defending once and going into 2021 as the champion. I just think he possesses too many tools. I think you watch him fight and his control of pace and space, his ability to mix up his shots and become unpredictable in his striking, as well as his transitions from striking to wrestling. He doesn't use his wrestling a ton, but when he does, it's very effective. His outside trips, his throws, they're beautifully timed. And when he does get people on the ground and has a control on top, he doesn't look to just lay on you. He's ground and pound with vicious top game. So I do think he presents a problem for a lot of guys in that division. And, you know, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but guys that like Yair Rodriguez who have shown an inability to handle wrestling at a high level. And I think guys even like Korean Zombie who have shown that they will take a lot of shots. Even though Korean Zombie, man, in his last couple of fights, he's been so fluid on his feet. His timing has been really good, but the variety of options that Zabit gives in his fights is what leads me to believe by the end, this is the end of 2020, he will have taken the 145-pound title. And now we move on to probably the most laughed at prediction that I'll have on my list. The most eye-rolly, biased prediction that I have. We're talking about the lightweight champion of the world by the end of 2020. And of course, that would mean that your boy, look, I have the proper 12. I have a fucking great Irish accent. And yes, I'm picking Conor McGregor. Now, before everyone goes crazy and lights the comments section or the live chat on fire, hear me out. Your lightweight champion at the moment, Khabib Nurmagomedov. We're going to go a little bit conspiracy here, all right? You got to give me one conspiracy champion. One. Everybody else on this list can very well happen. And Conor can too, but let me get into conspiracy theories. Okay. Khabib Nurmagomedov is our current champion, 28-0, fighting Tony Ferguson in April. Part of the reason that I don't pick a guy like Justin Gaethje, who I do think will find his way to the gold at 155, or a guy like Dan Hooker, or even Dustin Poirier or Kevin Lee, those guys aren't necessarily matched up schedule-wise. Poirier doesn't have an opponent right now. Gaethje doesn't have an opponent right now. Dana's not really pleased with Gaethje not taking fights, in his opinion. Josh, what's going on, man? Welcome into the chat. What's going on, brother? I am great, man. I am so good. Happy New Year to you. We're doing our 2020 predictions for the MMA world, or I guess just the UFC at this point. So on the screen, you can see my UFC champions prediction by the end of 2020. And I'm trying to now explain why I think Conor McGregor will walk away with the 155-pound strap heading into 2021. Okay, so Khabib's fighting Tony in April. Khabib takes maybe 3 to 4 months off after that fight for Ramadan. He doesn't fight during Ramadan. It's against his religion to eat during a certain point of the day, and it doesn't make sense for him to drain himself daily, then go to training, then try to fight on a high level, on the highest level, while he's, practicing his religion. So he takes at least 3 or 4 months off there. That leaves Khabib to probably only fight twice this year. The first being Tony Ferguson, and the next, in my opinion, being Conor McGregor. Now, this hinges upon a couple of things. Conor has to beat Donald at 170. He has to. Then I think Conor McGregor goes and fights a BMF fight. I think he goes and fights either Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal would probably be ideal. And people are going to think I'm crazy, but I think Conor gets the jump on both those guys. Even though I'm a really, really big fan of Jorge Masvidal, and that fight would be close, man. That is a close fight. And Jorge's big at 170. So maybe this is just conspiracy way, but I think Conor gets 2 fights early in the year that he wins, either Donald, Nate, Donald, Jorge, or even maybe he comes down to 55 and fights a guy like Poirier again to establish some sort of pecking order at 155. Jordan, what's going on, man? Welcome in. Happy New Year. to establish some sort of pecking order at 155. Maybe he comes back and fights a Dustin Poirier mid-year. But Conor's already said, look, I want to fight 3 times. He's told Dana this. He's told us this. And I think by winning 2 of those first fights, somehow the UFC gets with Khabib and gets with Ali, and they make the 3rd fight. And I think Conor gets the jump on Khabib. I don't know why. Maybe it's my blind faith to the Irish touch of death that Conor possesses with that left hand. I don't know. Maybe it's crazy, but something inside me just says that Conor McGregor, when he starts putting things out into the universe, when he starts saying, look, I'm fighting 3 times, this is how it's going down, and I'm walking away with the strap heading into 2020, I tend not to doubt the guy. I don't know why. I know he's lost to Khabib already. I think the game plan was a little too defensive in that fight. And obviously if that happens and my prediction comes to fruition and that fight's down the road toward the end of the year, we'll talk about it then. But for now, let's let my conspiracy hack buckle down. Conor McGregor as your 155-pound champion heading into 2021. That's the end of the year 2020, not for the duration of the entire year, just the end of the year. That's who I think will hold the strap heading into 2020. And again, it's a little biased there, but I look at it and it works out perfectly. If he can get done on his end what he says, you're talking about a storybook ending in 2020 and the return of the king. Okay, now we have the 170-pound champion. And this one isn't really too difficult for me because we on stream watched Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington just recently, 245. And I'm watching this fight, and I even watched it back a little bit when I was on my trip with Kelsey, and I'm watching this fight, and I'm thinking, how in the world, and this is no disrespect to Kamaru, no disrespect to Colby Covington, but how in the world did Tyron Woodley not win a round against this guy and Kamaru Usman? Kamaru is phenomenal. His pace is crazy. He's got insane power that carries into the later rounds. But Tyron Woodley, we've seen for years and years and years possess power into later rounds. Find ways to beat guys like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, in my opinion, twice, who it is a tough matchup for everybody at 170 for Stephen Wonderboy. He's found ways to beat Damian Maia, who is widely considered the best grappler in MMA. And it just made no sense on that night that Kamaru just walked right through the standing champion that had just picked off left and right everyone in that division. And up until that point, some people were considering in that same conversation with George St. Pierre as one of the greatest welterweights ever. So for people to write off Tyron Woodley and act like he's not very dangerous in any fight is beyond shocking to me. And I think what happens is Tyron Woodley is probably going to get either a fight against Leon Edwards or possibly a fight against Colby Covington. And I think he is going to show people, reestablish to people that he is very dominant at that 170-pound division. And he probably is going to do it in highlight fashion. I mean, the man possesses rockets in his right hand. Jordan, I 100% agree. It was a complete freeze job. A complete just one of those nights where Kamaru possessed an insane pace, pushed Tyron back against the cage. And Tyron does have an issue with sometimes letting himself get pushed into the cage and then trying to punch his way off it, which is fine when you possess a deadly dynamite right hand like he does. But the problem with that is when you have a guy like Kamaru who closes space that quickly and just doesn't let up, especially in that fight, he just closed space and would not let Tyron off the cage, wouldn't give him any sort of space to let off a right hand. And Tyron was hesitant to pull the trigger, and he's been the first to admit that. Listen, when a guy like Tyron or a guy like Conor, any champion loses, and they freely admit that the reason they lost is what everybody thought it was. I just couldn't pull the trigger. I didn't have it that night. He was the better man, and I froze up. Tyron said that many a times. I tend to start to believe when you accept defeat as a champion like that, and you don't make excuses like, he just got lucky. I could have knocked him out if I wanted to. Tyron freely admitted that whatever reason, he froze up, and the better man won. When you start to be honest with yourself like that, I tend to think that good things are coming for Tyron Woodley because, again, one of the most powerful 170ers I've ever seen. Great wrestler, good defensive wrestling. Before that fight, he hadn't been taken down much at all in his career. No one had really attempted to even. But I think Tyron Woodley is going to reestablish dominance here in this 2020 year. I think he gets, like I said, I don't know how it's going to work out with Leon Edwards. Might get that next shot. Jorge Masvidal might get that next shot at 170. whoever they give Tyron Woodley, I'm assuming it's going to be Colby Covington. I think he makes a statement against, and again, this is no offense to Colby or Kamaru. I just think you put Tyron in that fight, and he washes both those guys on that night. He looked, I don't even know the word to describe what he looked like against Kamaru, but I'd never seen that Tyron Woodley before. So I think Tyron Woodley comes back, reestablishes himself, and reclaims gold at 170, and ends the year as the champion. So I think that Kamaru will probably defend one more time, maybe against Leon Edwards, maybe against Colby Covington. And then there's a matchup between Tyron and Kamaru, and Tyron gets the jump on Kamaru and walks into 2021 your champion. But guys, I'm going to let's wait. There are some guys at 170 that are coming up that I think present real problems for even Tyron Woodley, but we'll wait. We'll do that for the second part of the podcast here. Okay. Next, we have 185 pounds, the middleweight division, championed by Israel Adesanya. By the way, I should start putting this actually in my description. If you guys want to see some of the stuff that I write, this is off topic, but if you guys want to see some of the stuff I write, I actually write for the MMA Dive, which is a subsidiary of IMDb. I am a contributing writer over there, and I wrote an article for the best moment of 2019 in MMA, and it was headlined by Israel Adesanya. It's a really cool piece. If you guys don't know a little bit about what Israel Adesanya comes from and why it meant so much to beat Robert Whittaker in Australia, you guys, I'll link that for the next video we do, so you guys can check that out. It was a pretty cool piece that I worked on with them, and it was fun to write. So go check that out. I'll make sure I link it in my next video. Anyway, middleweight champion is Israel Adesanya. Now, you look through the rankings, Robert Whittaker being the number one guy in the world, Paulo Costa recovering from bicep tendon surgery, Yoel Romero is still there, which is, I don't understand how that works. The guy's 40-plus years old and still just an absolute tank at 185. Some people didn't think he even lost the fight against Paulo Costa. It was a super close fight. And then you have Jared Cannonier, and right under him, Darren Till. Now, those two are very interesting to me. Jared Cannonier and Darren Till. Cannonier, an absolute demolition machine at 185. When he hits you, you just fall. It's the way it goes. He is deadly power in his hands. I mean, we're talking about a former heavyweight that has now found a way to get down to 185 pounds and fight. And when he hit Jack Hermanson, and not only that, when he stuffed takedowns from Jack Hermanson, he showed me that he is able to compete at this elite level. I could see Jared Cannonier climbing these ranks and possibly contending for a title soon. But at the same time, you look at the guys ranked ahead of Jared Cannonier. Yoel Romero is a tough matchup for him. Yoel can wrestle his ass off. And this is different than a guy like Jack Hermanson, who is looking to submit you and get you in positions that are uncomfortable. Yoel will just continually explode. He'll take some time, explode, take some time, explode, and then he starts to chain wrestle. And then he starts to use that to open up his striking. That's a different matchup that I haven't seen Jared Cannonier have to deal with yet. Darren Till, on the other hand, just dealt with Kelvin Gastelum, who you can't do MMA math and say, well, Kelvin did really well against Israel, so Darren Till is just going to walk by everyone. It's not how it works. But Darren Till did have a really good showing against Kelvin. Kelvin could not get a single speck of offense off. While it wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world, not every fight's going to be. And not every matchup allows you to fight in that style. But Darren Till showed maturity. He showed distance control. He showed great pace. He never got tired, never had to start dropping his hands and just swinging. He just showed a presence about him that we hadn't seen in Darren Till in a couple of fights. And the reason that everybody was hyped up about Darren Till to begin with, he showed us that. Jared Kick, what's going on? Happy New Year, my man. Appreciate you being here. We're talking about our 2020 predictions by division for the UFC champions at the end of 2020. So I'm predicting these fighters, who you guys can see down on the left-hand corner, are going to be the champions at the end of the year in 2020. So I'm talking about Darren Till being the 185-pound champion. I think he's a great matchup for Israel Adesanya. I think Izzy is going to hold that belt for the majority of the year. Darren Till maybe gets matched up with Robert Whittaker next. I know he's calling for that fight. If not, you could see him possibly getting a Jared Cannonier fight. But I do think Izzy's either going to fight Paulo Costa or Yoel next. I think he wins that fight either way. And I think, and I'm not just breezing by like that's an easy fight for either guy. I think Izzy has just got a lot of tools, and when those, depending on which fight that would be, we'd break that down more, whether it's Costa or Romero. But I think Darren Till gets the jump on a guy like Jared Cannonier, or Robert Whitaker, and seeing him in a fight with Israel Adesanya would be striking personified. That would be a striking fan's dream, those two going together. Jurkic says, Adesanya is my favorite fighter alongside Miocic. Two of my favorites as well. Israel Adesanya is no walk in the park for anybody. He showed that throughout last year and the year before. I just think Darren Till has started to show more maturity in the cage. He's starting to use more weapons, more of those Muay Thai weapons. That clinch he used against Kelvin Gastelum was so effective. He didn't get hit really at all in that fight, and landed some really clean shots. I think as he grows throughout this year, and there's no more cupcake fights for Darren Till. He's going to have to fight some killers at 85, but I just think that's going to add more to his experience level and his maturity in the cage, and show him that he doesn't have to go in there and have a firefight with everybody to win. He doesn't have to go in there, the bigger man, the gorilla, whatever it is, and throw big shots down the pipe, take one to give one. He's not going to have to do that. And I think he's starting to realize that, and the more he does, the more he is a dangerous matchup for Israel Adesanya. I think later in the year, maybe Darren fights one more time, Izzy fights two. I think Darren gets the drop on him late in the year and takes that belt from Israel Adesanya. It's a great striking matchup. Could go either way. Probably will go down to one of those last rounds. I think Darren does enough to get on to take the strap and leaves 2020 as the 185-pound champion. Again, these are my predictions. Not necessarily going to be right, but your boy needs to make up for it. Y'all had me in makeup last week. I'm not going out like that no more. I'm not going out like that. We'll think of wagers for these picks. Maybe on the Conor McGregor card on the 18th, you guys can hit me with some punishments you guys think for if my predictions are wrong. For not only the 2020 card, obviously for the 246 card itself, but be thinking, chat. Be thinking of some wagers we can do for the grand. Like, it's got to be big. For me to go out and pick 2020 champions, if I'm wrong, like, say I miss, like, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I miss 5, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, if I miss 5 out of those predictions, you guys got to think of a massive punishment wager for me to do, and I'll do it. You guys know I don't mind doing it at all. So keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. But next up, we have Jon Jones at 205. And listen, guys, history teaches us a lot about the future, right? It's the old, like, what is it? The old world history class, first day quotes by your teacher. History is doomed to repeat itself. Jon Jones is literally the 205-pound class. He is that class. He has that class wrapped up. He has had it wrapped up for the last decade and change. Jon beat the fighters that came before him. He beat the fighters of his generation, and now he's beating the fighters of the next generation. You don't see that in champions, man. You don't see that in a sport that's so volatile and so fluid, and everybody changes over belts like crazy. You don't see what a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Jon Jones are doing. Now, I know this kind of breaks my whole argument with Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, but Jon Jones is just so versatile. He's big for the weight class. He has a reach advantage on damn near everyone. Dominic Reyes does present some problems, but Jon Jones has just proven he can handle every style. He can stand up with a guy like Thiago Santos. He can wrestle with a guy like Daniel Cormier. He submits black belts. The guy doesn't have really any weaknesses. So until he's proven to have one, I don't, and it's not like the division is stacked full of guys that are 6'4" with an 82-inch reach that are going to give Jon real problems on his feet. And wrestling, do you want to wrestle with a guy like Jon Jones after he dumped Daniel Cormier on his head? I don't know who's going to give him problems. You look through the division, he has wins over Gustafsson, Teixeira. Anthony Smith is there. Cormier's still ranked. Thiago Santos. I mean, the biggest names that are going to challenge him now are Reyes, Corey Anderson, possibly Jan Blachowicz, but I'm also looking to John maybe winning a couple of fights and then going up to that heavyweight division while still holding up the lightweight division. So John might only have to fight twice this year, and then he's probably going to heavyweight. And when he goes to heavyweight, that's going to be his weight class. I just don't know when that'll be. If it's going to be John fights 3 times this year and then jumps to heavyweight at the start of 2021, that's what I'm planning on. That's what my list is planning on being, because as you guys will see next, and again, John Jones just doesn't, until he's shown to have a weakness, I'm not going to say he does have one. I'm not going to play as if he has one when he hasn't shown. And again, I know that kind of sticks a hole in my argument with Khabib Nurmagomedov, but we can possibly agree that Khabib does have a weakness stand-up wise. He's not the greatest stand-up fighter in the world, but he has improved vastly in that respect. So now we move to the heavyweight division. Jurkic says John Jones GOAT. Yeah, I mean, John's the GOAT, man. By the way, somebody had left a message. I think it was my boy Tommy had left a message on my channel about John Jones being the GOAT and why he doesn't think so. Tommy, if you're watching, I will do a video on that, or at least I'll make it a part of a video, maybe one of my live streams somehow. But I do want to talk about it. I thought you brought up a good point, and I do want to talk about it. So don't think I forgot or don't think I didn't read it, Tommy. I will discuss why I do think John Jones is the GOAT at some point. Some point, maybe in the next week or so. I like the idea. Anyway, moving on. Heavyweight division. As you guys can see, I have Francis Ngannou listed as my champion at the end of 2020. And that's for a couple of reasons. Heavyweight is not going to have many fights this year at the title. Or for the title, I should say. Stipe and Daniel Cormier are going to have the rematch. In my opinion, I think Dana wants that fight. I think the fans want that fight for the trilogy. I don't know if Stipe wants that fight right now. I don't know if Stipe even thinks that Daniel deserves that fight. I think the rest of us do. I would say there's probably like a 90% chance that they do the trilogy. With that being said, that title is going to be held up for, they don't even have anything on the books for that fight, and they might not until mid-year. So it's at least going to be held up for 6 months, which leaves guys like Francis, Curtis Blades, Junior Dos Santos, even Rosenstrike, Alexander Volkov, all those guys are going to have to fight it out amongst themselves. And Francis is not opposed to taking a fight in between that. If I was Francis's manager, I don't know how I'd feel about that. Francis has been on a really, really good run. I mean, beat pretty much everybody in that heavyweight division so far. The fight, as Jurkic has mentioned, and now the fight with Rosenstrike is interesting for Francis. 2 heavyweight destroyers. I mean, absolute one-punch KO. Put the lights out in Georgia, the whole thing from both guys. It's scary. If those 2 get locked in a cage, take my money, and fireworks are going off immediately. So that's an interesting fight for Francis, but I do think Francis not only possesses, and this is what separates him from Rosenstrike in my opinion, he doesn't just possess one-punch KO power. I think he possesses the patience to land the shots and the ability to time shots really well. Now, Rosenstrike, you can say, has those same qualities, especially the backing up left hook that he hit Orlovsky with. But Francis has done it time after time after time, and he's landed big, big shots. He even landed big, big shots on Stipe late in that fight. Now, I know that fight was completely dominated by Stipe, but if you go back and watch the 3rd and 4th round of that fight, the times that Stipe did get clipped, it looked like Francis snapped his head off late in rounds, moving backward. There are holes in his game. There are definitely holes in Francis' game that we don't know if he's fixed yet, which would be his defensive wrestling, his grappling continuously through 5 rounds, and his gas tank. We don't know if he's fixed those yet, and we haven't really had to know because he's putting people out in a minute and a half. He did away with Curtis Blades early, did away with Junior Dos Santos early, made Cain Velasquez look like he broke his whole damn knee off. Like, he's beating huge, huge names. And Rosenstrike, while he does possess great KO power and, landed one of the cleanest right hands, jumping right hands that split Overeem's face open to win that fight, Francis Ngannou sit Alistair Overeem to the freaking moon. So I do think Francis has just weird ability to not only catch people with his great timing, but also he has knockout power in either hand at any point in the fight, moving backward, moving forward, short punches. He hit Junior Dos Santos from behind with a left hook and knocked him out. So Francis is going to, in my opinion, get the rematch with Stipe or have to fight. I don't know what you do if Daniel beats Stipe and they vacate the title. Who fights for the vacant title? Stipe and Francis? Or do you go with a guy like Francis versus a Curtis Blades, if Curtis gets another win? I do think that it will end up being Francis versus Stipe, and I think Francis gets that win back. I think he puts Stipe on the mat and moves into 2021 as your champion, setting up the ultimate showdown at heavyweight. John Jones, Francis Ngannou for the title in 2021. But I do think Francis, later on in the year, finally gets that rematch with Stipe and gets the jump on him. That's my men's list, guys. That is my men's divisions list. Joe Benavidez, Aljamain Sterling, Zabit, Conor McGregor, Tyron Woodley, Darren Till, John Jones, Francis Ngannou. Now, you look at that list, and no one is remaining champion that is champion right now. No one. A little bit ambitious by me. I think 155 is probably the most ambitious pick by me. Conor McGregor, again, a little bit of a homer here, a little bit of a bias. Conor's been one of my favorite, if not my favorite fighter for 8 years now. So, whatever, all right? It is what it is. No Max Holloway, but it is what it is. I just think that there's so many huge top contenders frothing at the mouth for a big title opportunity. And the sport is evolving, and the champions that are going to come up and rise up in this next year are going to really show that. It's not going to be just a wrestler. It's not going to be just strikers. We're going to see the well-rounded variety attacks and defense from our champions in 2020. And that's why I think, as you can see my list, granted, 2025 is going to have a new champion regardless. Henry just gave up the title. But everybody else, I think, possesses the skills to hold that belt in 2020. Now, let's move to the women's divisions. At 115, I have Tatiana Suarez. I think Tatiana Suarez is a bad matchup for everybody in the top 5. I think there's a possibility that Joanna Jędrzejczyk gets the jump on Weili Zhang. We haven't seen a lot from our champion at 155. We know that she has explosive strikes, a almost lion-like or shark-like pursuit. After she smells blood, she jumps on you. And she did that to Jessica Andrade. Rose Namajunas is still there. We don't really know a lot about if she's even fighting anymore. But Rose possesses an amazing variety of skills. I do like Rose's fight style. I like her matchups against a lot of people. Maybe not Weili Zhang just because of the explosive power she presents. And it looks like the only vulnerabilities that Rose has at the moment is just one-shot, crazy knockout power, or kind of like what Jessica did, even though I thought Rose was winning that fight, and she pretty easily would have won that fight, in my opinion, had she not got thrown on her head. But Tatiana Suarez possesses, in my opinion, something that the 115ers don't really see too often, and that's an elite grappling ability. Elite grappling ability. And the way you're going to control an explosive flurry that like Weili Zhang, like Jessica Andrade, even someone like Rose Namajunas, who's a little undersized, is going to be to grapple and have an amazing top game, good strength, an ability to press people on the cage and continue to work from the top. Tatiana, I think, is a bad matchup for all these girls just because strictly she's very powerful in her grappling. She puts girls where she wants to put them, and they kind of stay there. Now, her striking is a little suspect, and that could come with some problems against Weili Zhang or even Rose or Joanna Jędrzejczyk. But I do think that Tatiana does possess a key X factor, which is her grappling ability. And we have seen, and like I said, I know in the men's divisions, it's not just as simple as having wrestling to be able to become a champion, have elite wrestling to become a champion. But in the women's division, we still are developing, especially in the 115. We're developing new champions in this new breed of fighter. And Tatiana Suarez does have the leg up in the grappling. I think she gets the jump on any of the girls really in the top 4. But if it's Weili Zhang or Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think it's a really big problem for both those girls trying to fight Tatiana Suarez. So I think she probably gets that fight next. Whoever wins this Weili Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight, she probably gets the next shot. And I think she walks away with the belt. Jurkic says, Amanda is just too good for everyone. You are absolutely right. At her divisions, Amanda doesn't look like she's going to get beat. But at 125, I have, going into 2021, Valentina Shevchenko. You look at 125, and it's pretty much a wasteland. There's not a lot of people that can compete with Valentina in that division at all. When I look at this division, I see one name that can compete possibly with Valentina Shevchenko, and that's Maycee Barber. Maycee Barber is a very interesting prospect, very young, looking to become the youngest champion in UFC history. That is her goal. She has explicitly stated that. That's what she wants, and she very well could do that. But to do it, you're going to have to take out the bullet. And Valentina doesn't, again, these champions that don't show a lot of weakness, I'm not going to conjure up the fact that they have one. Valentina's grappling's amazing. Her judo's amazing. Her striking, she about put Jessica I's eye in the back of her skull. I mean, she doesn't seem to have a weakness. So, with someone that is a forward-moving combination striker who does have a nasty streak, Maycee Barber is mean, and when she throws strikes, they're not just a patty cake. She's looking to knock you the hell out. She is. But Valentina is just a different level at this moment, and I know that Maycee has the potential to get there. I do think she's a little young. I think she's just a little young for the title shot right now, and I think she'll probably get it sometime in 2020. But I do think that Valentina just, at this point, the experience she possesses, in my opinion, the only person that can really compete with Amanda Nunes at this point is Valentina Shevchenko. I just think that plus her ability to not only master striking, she has great judo, she has great top game on the ground. She's very powerful for that division too. So I think that Valentina could wash every girl in that division outside of Maycee Barber, and even then, it's a tough fight for Maycee, especially how young she is. She's still got it so long. Her career is going to be so long in that division. And at some point, Maycee will grab that title. I just don't think it's this year. So I think Valentina stays on top at 125, and then at 35 and 45, I mean, like Jurkic said, like you guys know, when do we got to just put our hands up and say, okay, Amanda, there's really not much for you to do anymore. You're the GOAT. Everybody on this list, everybody in your division, you've pretty much taken care of. We don't have much else for you. When can we do that, by the way? Is there a time where we can just say, look, you did it. You won at life, at this MMA game. You won it. You did it. Because Amanda has pretty much done it. She's beaten everybody pretty much in the 35-pound division. Now, you do have Aspen Ladd there. I think Amanda's a very tough matchup for Aspen Ladd. Seeing what Jermaine Durandame did to Aspen, catching her with a right hand coming in. Amanda could tag her the same way. And you look down the list, Raquel Pennington's there, Ketlin Vieira's there, but when you really think about it, is anybody giving those kind of problems to Amanda Nunes? I don't think so. And at 45, I don't even know who's in the division at this point. I don't even know any 45-pound or 145-pound women that are going. Maybe you have, I'm looking at it. I don't really know anybody that's going to give Amanda any problems. So I think we just chalk it up to Amanda probably fighting once at 35 next year and once at 45 next year. If they can find somebody for her, maybe Megan Anderson at 45, that might be a good fight, but I don't see her losing those titles. Like I don't see anybody that's as well-rounded, that's as experienced, and that has such a good training camp every single time around like Amanda Nunes does. So you're going to have to convince me that any of those girls can hang with Amanda Nunes, because as of the last couple of years, no one on the planet can. So I think Amanda holds 35 and 45 to end out the year. She probably only fights once in each weight class, maybe twice at 35, but only once at 45. And yeah, that's my list, guys. Tell me what you think. I know that there's going to be some people that are like, Connor at 55, you're crazy. Darren Till beating Israel Adesanya, you're out of your mind. Maybe even the Zabit thing after his last fight. People are going to be like, what are you talking about? Zabit can't go 3 rounds. He was gassed. Maybe. It's just something I see, and we're going to have to see for ourselves, guys. So that's my list for champions in 2020. Now, let's do this. Let's talk about, I don't want to say rising stars, but breakout fighters. Maybe rising stars for 2020. When you think of rising stars, breakout fighters, you think of the fighters that you kind of know, but don't necessarily think they're going to get that title shot or going to be in the top 5 as the year goes on. And in my opinion, there are some fighters at these weight divisions that are going to catapult themselves into title contention in early 2021. These fighters, maybe you guys know, maybe you don't, but they are very dangerous, and I think you're going to start hearing these names. You're going to come back to my podcast and go, dang, Wade told us about this guy in the early part of the year, and he's just now doing X, Y, and Z. But that's why you guys have me here. So, my predictions for breakout stars for 2020 are as follows. Let me do this. Bam. We have Nate Landwehr, the Train. Now, this is a special one for me because this guy is kind of a homer for me. I am from Tennessee. Nate is from Clarksville, Tennessee, which is more on the middle part of the state. Oh, Devil Monkey, what's going on, baby? Go Tigers, big dog. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw my Tennessee Vols squeak out a victory last night against Indiana in the final minutes. Let's go. But yes, go Tigers from my boy Devil Monkey. Shout out to you, my man. Happy New Year. It's good to have you in here, brother. But as you can see, Nate Landwehr, he is from Clarksville, Tennessee. Been fighting in K1 now for a couple of years. He's going to be debuting, M1, not K1. Been fighting in the M1 promotion. That's, again, this one of these promotions over across the sea that Habib Nurmagomedov fought in, that Fedor fought in, that Fedor also owned a stake in. But we won't mention that. But he's had some really big wins as of late, and he's making his debut against Herbert Burns here. I think it's going to be on January 25th. Yep. On the January 25th card, we will react to that. Nate is very flashy. He is a very big personality. And at featherweight, there is room, especially in that 7 to 15 range, to move up. So you can see here at featherweight, I know it's a very deep division, but you can see that there's room to move up outside of 8. You have Jose there, Josh Emmett, Cater, Burgos, Ryan Hall, who's another guy to watch. Jesus Christ. If someone wants to fight, I think the only reason Ryan Hall is as low ranked at 45 as he is because no one really wants to fight him. That guy has crazy submissions, his combinations of that, plus his kicks, plus the fact that he trains at TriStar with some of the greatest fighters on the planet. He's another guy to watch. I just think that my guy Nate he's got that it factor about him when he fights. He's got devastating KO power. I like his ability to mix up his shots. He's flashy. Plus, again, he's from Clarksville, Tennessee. How am I not going to root for my guy, man? So keep an eye on my boy Nate Landwehr. The Train is his nickname at featherweight. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in 2020. Okay, next. We just talked about her. I think it's okay that we put her on this list because while I don't think she's going to win the title in 2020, I think she's going to be a force to be reckoned with at 125 for years to come. And, of course, we're talking about Macy Barber. I mean, her nickname is the future for a reason. This girl is the future, the Train. Hey, man, watch what Nate does when he gets in. When on the 25th he makes his debut, watch what he does to poor Herbert Burns, man. He's going to literally the trains are going to come off the tracks. That guy is going to come in, do some crazy outlandish stuff, get on the microphone, say something nuts, but in the fight, he is a force to be reckoned with. But Macy Barber here, she's 8-0, the future. She's got a fight coming up and this is great for her too because we know the name Macy Barber, but she's going to get the most exposure she's ever had in her next fight. January 18th, otherwise known as the Conor McGregor Cowboy card. She is going to be fighting Roxanne Modafferi, who is, I think, the Ultimate Fighter, Gaethje and Eddie Alvarez, I think winner of that season. Tough fight for Roxanne. Maycee Barber comes forward, lands big shots, very aggressive. But we haven't seen Maycee's grappling ability yet. We don't know how well-versed she is off of her back or even in top game. I know she's strong for that division. But why I put her on my fighters to watch for 2020 is because she's 21 years old. She's 8-0. She has a great look. She's devastatingly powerful with her strikes. She's mean. She's aggressive. She calls her shot. She's given this law of attraction, that the same kind of stuff that you hear from Conor McGregor. She's putting that out in the universe. She says, I want to be the youngest champion ever, and wholeheartedly has set herself up to do that. And she fights in a way that almost makes you think that, damn, this girl really does want to win that title before she's 23. She's just so nasty, so vicious in the cage that it makes this kind of duality of person for her. She's so sweet and innocent outside of the cage. When she gets in the cage, she's a killer. And at 25, the division isn't stacked. So she has the opportunity to really make that climb quickly. So if you don't know Maycee Barber's name by now, a lot of you do. I know you guys in chat do. You're going to know it by the end of 2020. Devil says, I watched Maycee on the Contender Series. I hope she does well. Yeah, she is. She's very good. And she's also now training at a Rufus Sport. She had bounced around a couple of gyms. But she's now over with Duke Rufus and guys like Anthony Pettis. Even Ben Askren is still there helping her. I know he's retired, but he's still there helping her. And if you want to have some help with your grappling, I mean, Ben Askren's the guy to go to. So, I mean, Tyron Woodley's up there. So she's got a good team. And with a huge win over Roxanne, if she can get that win on January 18th, the exposure for her will go through the roof. So be looking for Maycee Barber to really set herself apart as the year moves forward. Now, this one was one I wanted to mention earlier when we were talking about our 170-pound champion, and I'm talking about Jeff Neal. Now, again, I picked Mike Perry at UFC 245, and I told you straight up, it was probably more of a bias pick. I'm a big Mike Perry fan. As a person, I like Mike Perry. And as a fighter, he's nasty. He's a dog. He goes in there and mixes it up. But we're talking about a guy in Jeff Neal that, guys, I may be hitting the rocket ship alarm too quickly here, but I see champion written all over this guy. I see him getting that strap really quickly, and I don't know what it is. I just love his style. I love the ability of him to not only win by decision, win by devastating TKOs. I mean, he handled Nico Price's wild, crazy, outlandish style like it was nothing, and then finished him on the ground. Ground and pound punches. Like, this guy handles everybody, and these are different styles. Mike Perry comes forward, got that okey doke kind of Mike Tyson bob and throw uppercuts with the hook behind it. And then Nico Price, I don't even know what you call his style, but Jeff Neal just calmly handled both of them. I mean, he's got wins over even a guy at Team Oyama that I'm a big fan of, Frank Camacho, head kicked him into oblivion. Belal Muhammad. Granted, these aren't the creme de la creme at 170, but you look at his skills, you look at the style in which he fights, the composure he already has for a guy that hasn't had a ton of fights in the UFC. I do think he's going to ascend up this welterweight ladder pretty quickly. And I know it's murderer's row at welterweight, and I know 170 is has its way of picking off the guys that aren't quite ready yet. I know experience is a big deal. I just think this guy's ready. Now, 2020 might not be the year he captures that belt, but look for him to make a real rise into the top 5, I think. And by the end of 2020, we could see this guy as a top 5 contender, or possibly even a title contender. Jeff Neal. All right. Next, we have another interesting fighter, Ciryl Gane. Now, this guy is a training partner of Francis Ngannou. He is coming off of 3 fights, not only last year he had 3 fights, he had 4 fights last year. He had 3 fights in the last 3 months of the year. So this guy is very quickly making a name for himself at heavyweight. Again, a training partner of Francis Ngannou. That could cause an issue down the road. If they both keep winning, there's going to be a point, if that happens, they're going to meet. And I don't know what that'll entail, if that's something they're going to fight each other but I do know they're training partners. He's an elite Muay Thai practitioner. He's done away with some pretty big names, and he just looks really, really good. I don't know where his deficiencies lie on the ground, what his grappling looks like. He does have some submission wins, even a triangle, as well as an arm triangle and a heel hook. So if he has the ability to get these fights in a position where he finds he has advantages like in a Muay Thai striking bout, or even like we've seen, he's heel hooked some guys. He's had an arm triangle, so it doesn't look like his ground game is lacking as much as maybe a Francis Ngannou's is. So look for Ciryl Gane to make his way through the heavyweight division. Again, another division that isn't necessarily as stacked as maybe 170, 185, 145, 155. You can make your way. This division is fluid, man, and I've always called it the land of the dinosaurs. You can make your way through these old, savvy veterans. You're going to have a pretty quick rise to the top 10 and even the top 5. So I expect for 2020 to be very good to Ciryl Gane and him possibly getting into a top 10 situation early in the year, and then maybe even getting into a top 5 as we move into 2021, which again could set up a difficult kind of task, because it would be if he wins and Francis Ngannou continues to win. You're talking about two guys that train together, are on the same team, that are possibly going to have to look at fighting. And you look at his size, he's 6'5", 265. That mirrors Francis Ngannou. So I'm looking forward to watching him fight more. I do think he ends up finding his way into a heavyweight top 5 as the year ends. And lastly, Nathaniel Wood. This is probably one of the guys I'm more excited about at 135. Outside of, our usual suspects, Cody Garbrandt, Corey Sandhagen, Aljamain Sterling, I think Nathaniel Wood's going to surprise some people heading into 2021. And that's because the totality of what he brings to the table. Great striker, 9 wins by KO. Great submission artist, 5 wins by submission. 16-3 record. Some people are calling him the new face of England. I think with that fan base behind him, it's going to really help him ascend through the ranks. I know he's not fighting on the I think he's fighting a week before the actual London card, which is crazy. Why would you not put him on the London card? But he is actually he's actually going to be fighting a week before that. But he has some great wins. As of late, he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak. Going to be fighting a real contender in John Dodson. That's not an easy fight for anybody. Petr Yan even had his struggles with John Dodson early in that fight, so it's not an easy fight. Nathaniel Wood's going to have to prove that he is ready for the big time, but I've watched him fight. I like his tenaciousness. I like his pressure. It seems that not only does he possess pressure, but also he's able to calm himself and use that distance control that isn't necessarily as valuable to some people at 135, as guys are just flying around going crazy. But I think he's starting to learn. He's only 26. He's starting to learn a little bit more patience in the cage. Like I said, a variety of skills that he possesses. I think he's going to be a breakout star in 2020. I think it might be a little less so in his case. This is kind of why I put him last. I don't think he jumps into the top 5 or 7 this year. I think he probably stays around that number 9 or 8 rank. He may get a fight against a guy like Cody Garbrandt and get the jump on Cody, and then you're into the top 5. There's no more cupcakes at that point. But I do see him at least making a name for himself and putting 135 on notice that he is, as 2021 starts, he is a very serious contender at that weight class. So those are our breakout stars for the year, in my opinion. You have Nate Landwehr, Macy Barber, Jeff Neal, Ciryl Gane, and Nathaniel Wood. Look for those guys and ladies to be very impactful as we move into 2021. Now, let's talk about some shocking moments that we're going to see this year. What would shock you guys? As an MMA community, what would shock you as we looked into 2020? Would it shock you to believe that the UFC would put on $1 million pay-per-view this year? Would it shock you to believe they'd put on 5? This is my proposition. I think this is shocking. I think the UFC does $3 million pay-per-views this year, or million view pay-per-views, or million buy, whatever you want to call it. I think Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone will be 1. I think Khabib Nurmagomedov, Tony Ferguson will be 2. And I think the inevitable trilogy between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier will be 3. Another shocking moment I think this year will be, I think Conor McGregor beats Khabib Nurmagomedov. These are hot takes, by the way. This is in no way predictable at all. This is just what I think. I think Conor McGregor beats Khabib Nurmagomedov by KO or TKO. And I think that would shock the world. Could Conor do that? I think that John Jones moves up to heavyweight and gets beat by a Francis Ngannou. I think that'll be the first time John is undersized and outmatched in a striking display by a guy like Francis Ngannou, who not only hits hard, but again, possesses great timing, is starting to find out how to use his hips to avoid takedowns. McGregor wins by neck crank. I don't think that'll happen. But yes, those are two of my shocking moments. I think Conor beats Khabib, and I think Francis Ngannou, should John make the jump earlier than I predict, and he gets to heavyweight by the end of 2020, and Francis is there, I think Francis beats John Jones. Another shocking prediction. I think that this is completely out of left field. I think that Cody Garbrandt is out of the UFC by the time 2021 rolls around. Or at least he's not ranked. I think Cody Garbrandt will not be ranked in the bantamweight division as 2021 rolls around. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about Cody. I'm a huge fan of Cody Garbrandt. I love the way he fights. I think he's one of the most talented 135ers on the planet. I just think that for whatever reason, he has a default to become an animal and get in striking exchanges and leaves himself open. And sometimes when you hit the top of the mountain and you hit it so quickly, it's really hard to get back there. We've seen guys that looked invincible fall from grace at the lower weight divisions, at higher weight divisions, but maybe even a guy like, not Rafael Assunção, Renan Barão. You saw Renan Barão as dominant as anybody could be at 35 for years. I think it was 10 years undefeated streak. And TJ Dillashaw took him off the mountain, and he was never the same. So I hope I'm wrong, but I will at least say Cody Garbrandt will not be ranked at 135 by the time 2021 rolls around. And lastly, I think Daniel Cormier, I don't know if this would even be shocking, but Daniel Cormier beats Stipe Miocic and calls for a John Jones rematch or a trilogy match with John Jones. I don't think that Daniel Cormier is done just yet. Give me Daniel Cormier versus John Jones one more time and give it to me at heavyweight. Those would be my shocking moments of the year. I do think that more than likely Daniel Cormier retires, but something inside me, if he wins that fight or if he loses, but something inside me says that he knows in his heart of hearts at heavyweight, he's a different fighter than he is at light heavyweight. And given the opportunity, he would take the John Jones fight one more time. Anyway, that is our 2020 predictions. Wildish, outlandish claims. Complete bias in every pick, especially the Conor McGregor one. And yeah, conspiracies, the whole thing. 2020 is going to be a good year. We're strictly doing our wagers for the year based off of my championship picks. So here's the wager, guys. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I get 7 of these 12 predictions wrong, in other words, if I have more wrong than I do right, we will do a wager punishment at the end of the year, at the end of 2020. Look at Devil. He already knows, man. Get your ideas in now. Get them cooking. Get them cranking. Because by the time this time next year, this podcast, you know what I'm saying, 10,000 subscribers probably by that point, you know what I'm saying, we're growing to the top every time. Best MMA podcast on the actual platform. You can't stop us. You better join us at the W.A.D.E concept. I'm just letting you know now. By the time 2021 rolls around, it ain't just going to be 210 subscribers. And I'll tell you what, I love my 210, but we're about to take it to the next level. So by the time they're all in here, you guys have predictions ready because I'm not losing I'm not losing predictions again, guys. I'm just not doing it. I know I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's not happening. So get your predictions ready. I know we got a whole year to think about it, but start churning. This one's got to be a big one too, Devil. I was telling everybody, this one's got to be a big one. This one's can't be, oh, do his makeup, whatever. This one's got to be big. This is the biggest prediction I've ever done, a year-long prediction. So keep thinking about it. You have to box Kelsey with an arm. Oh, geez, she would knock me out. That'd actually be funny, though. Get your brain working. You guys think about it. And I will be back, what's today, the 3rd? We have no events this weekend. Nothing to react to this weekend. So let's see. The 6th, I'm out of town. The 6th through the 8th. I think we should do one definitely Thursday. The 9th. I think I'll be back Thursday the 9th. We'll do our next live stream podcast, and we'll do a little bit of some breakdown for the Cowboy and Conor McGregor fight coming up on the 18th. I'll actually do separately. I'll do an actual video where I break down those guys' fight styles and advantages. I'll do that separately, but we'll do a little bit of a breakdown for that fight. And then finally, when we do our actual predictions, we'll break that down in its entirety and the card. So be looking forward to next Thursday, the 9th. I will be back. Devil, before we get out of here, says LSU versus Clemson thoughts. That's a good question. I think LSU, if they can jump on Clemson early, Clemson has had trouble getting started quickly this year. This is college football talk, guys. LSU can jump out on guys really quick, can jump out on teams very quickly. I think if Joe Burrow can get that offense clicking as soon as that game starts and put Clemson down double scores, maybe get up 10-0, 14-0, 14-3, something like that. On Clemson, it could be a wrap just because Clemson has a real tough time getting started. But I think if Clemson can come out and stop that offense from LSU, LSU does have a tough time stopping consistent passing over and over, even though they didn't show that against Oklahoma. So I'd say LSU probably wins that game. I just think, again, LSU jumps on people, man. They jump out quick. And Clemson does have a tough time getting started. So I'd go LSU. Shit, we got one more. Devil, I think that game's on the 11th, right? The 11th or the 13th. The 9th, let's do predictions. Let's do national championship predictions. I'll have a score and everything, and we'll get into it, and we'll even maybe do some wagers for that. So look forward to the national championship game in college football, the 13th. Okay, cool. We'll do some predictions for that, and yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think light prediction, I'm going with LSU, but let me think about it a little more, and I'll get an actual score for you. Jurkic says, do I watch basketball? Yes, I love watching basketball. Currently, Tennessee is not very great. We started out pretty good this year, and then I think we lost like 3 or 4 straight and lost like by 20 to Wisconsin the other day. But I love college basketball. I love NBA basketball. So, yeah, Jurkic, I love watching basketball. But, yeah, so recaps. You guys saw my list. Predictions for 2020, breakout stars, shocking moments, all that good stuff. Be on the lookout for the 9th when I get back from a prior engagement I got. We are going to do our Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone tentative breakdown. Then I'll have another video out doing a full fight style breakdown. And then the week of the actual fight, we'll do a card breakdown for UFC 246. It's the new year, guys. I'm pumped to be with you guys as always. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the 9th, right back here at the W.A.D.E Concept. Thank you so much. And you guys already know, it's the W.A.D.E Concept. We are debating everything. Take it easy, everybody. I'll see you next time.